part of Romania, they say the mist holds a secret. A village where silence is a curse, and every night the walls cry out with a wail you cannot escape. It's a place where you don't just find horror, you become part of it.
In the depths of Romania's Carpathian Mountains, where the fog clung to ancient trees like a shroud, I arrived at a village known as Plungeriai, or the Valley of Wailing. The air was thick with a stillness that felt less like peace and more like a held breath. My name is Mihai, a travel vlogger, and my goal was to debunk the village's chilling legend, the annual disappearance of a young girl, followed by a suffocating, unnatural silence. The village houses, made of ancient, rotting wood, were covered in bizarre, grotesque carvings, distorted human faces with wide, screaming mouths and hollow eyes. The villagers watched me from the shadows of their windows, their faces expressionless, their eyes devoid of warmth. I found a guest house run by a grim, elderly woman named Aina. Her silence was more unsettling than any words could have been. She handed me a rusted key, her knuckles bony and scarred with what looked like old bite marks. On my first night, the silence was broken by a faint, whimpering sound. It wasn't just sobbing. It was the sound of a child in absolute, unending terror. The sound seemed to drift from the village's decrepit stone church. Armed with my camera, I followed the sound, my heart pounding in my chest. The church door creaked open to reveal an interior lit by a single, flickering candle. The air was heavy with the sickening sweet smell of decay and something metallic, something I instinctively knew was blood. The whimpering was louder now, but there was no child. The sound was coming from a corner, from a pile of old, charred leather books. As I moved closer, my camera light caught a gruesome sight. The blood on the floor was fresh, pooled into intricate symbols I couldn't understand. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door slammed shut, plunging me into total darkness. The whimpering stopped. I was alone, but I felt a chilling presence. "You should not have come here, Mihai." A voice rasped from the darkness. It was Anna. Her face, when she emerged into the candlelight, was no longer just grim. It was filled with a manic, terrifying glee. "This isn't a village," she hissed. "It's a feeding ground. We offer up our young to the Moroi to spare ourselves." She explained that the Moroi was a vengeful spirit, a shadow made of bloodlust and despair. She showed me her hands again, the scars on her knuckles now looking disturbingly like tiny mouths, forever hungry. "We are all marked by it," she whispered. Back in my room, sleep was impossible. The air grew frigid, and I could hear a sound I hadn't noticed before, a low, rhythmic scratching, like nails dragging over stone. Skrar. It was coming from inside the walls. And then, a faint, muffled giggling, as if a child was playing in the dark. I frantically checked my door. There were no scratches outside, but inside, a new carving had appeared, a clawed hand dripping with blood. I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. Desperate, I tried to flee the next morning, but the village gates were sealed shut with heavy, iron chains, and the villagers stood guard, their faces blank and unwavering. I was trapped. Anna approached me, her eyes filled with a cruel pity. She pressed a small, cracked mirror into my hand. "It can be trapped," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But only for a moment. You must do it when its hunger is at its peak." That night, the wailing returned. But this time it wasn't a child's sob. It was a chorus of tormented screams that seemed to tear through the very fabric of reality. The chilling laughter from the walls grew louder. Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted. A black, swirling mist materialized in the center of the room, slowly taking shape. The Moroi. Its eyes were not just red. They were two blazing infernos. Its long, skeletal fingers were tipped with grotesque, blackened claws, and its hair writhed like a nest of snakes. I held up the mirror, my hands trembling. The Moroi let out a blood-curdling scream and lunged at me. For a split second, its horrifying reflection was trapped in the glass. The mirror glowed with an otherworldly light, and the Moroi's form twisted and contorted. But before the light could fully consume it, the mirror shattered in my hands, its shards embedding themselves in my skin. The Moroi vanished, but its cold presence remained, its mocking laughter echoing in the now silent room. I escaped the village the next morning, the villagers parting to let me pass, their gazes a mix of relief and something darker. They had a new victim now, a new cycle of horror to begin. When I reached my car, I saw my own reflection in the side mirror. My eyes were wide with terror, but something else was there too. Tiny, bite-like scars were forming on my knuckles, and behind me, in the shattered fragments of my car's side mirror, I could just make out the grotesque, smiling face of the Moroi. It wasn't trapped, it was inside me. The journey away from Wailing was not a drive to freedom, but a descent into madness. The bite marks on my knuckles began to throb, spreading a cold, burning sensation up my arms. The laughter of the Moroi, once a distant echo in the silent room, was now a constant, chilling whisper in my ear. It spoke in a chorus of tormented screams and pleas, a language of pure despair that only I could understand. It didn't just want my blood, it wanted my mind. It was a parasite, feeding on my terror and trying to erase who I was. I felt my own memories fading, replaced by fractured, horrifying images of the Moroi's victims. I saw their faces in the dark corners of my car, their hollow eyes begging me for help. One night, exhausted and terrified, I stopped at a small roadside motel. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "Go to the young one," they hissed. "She is sleeping. She is so quiet, so innocent." My hands, now scarred with the bite marks, twitched uncontrollably. I tried to resist, to clamp my hands down, but they had a will of their own. I saw my reflection in the dark window, and for a split second, my eyes were not my own. They were 2 points of blazing, demonic red light. The Moroi was no longer just a voice. It was taking control. The final battle was not in a dark church or a haunted village. It was in my own mind. I locked myself in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. My face was no longer Mihai's. It was twisted into a grotesque, smiling mask. I could hear the Moroi's laughter, triumphant and deafening, as it fought for dominance. I saw my own life flash before my eyes. My memories, my family, my friends, the very reason I lived being consumed by the black vortex of the Moroi. I knew what I had to do. With the last ounce of my will, I grabbed the closest thing to me, a cracked mirror shard from my shattered keychain, and looked into my eyes one final time. I saw the fear in them. And then, as the Moroi's presence consumed me, I saw the fire. I brought the shard to my throat, but the hand hesitated. It was no longer my hand, but the Moroi's, its long, skeletal fingers with blackened claws now a part of me. The Moroi had won. It hadn't killed me. It had done something far worse. It had made me its new vessel. My consciousness was not erased, but trapped a screaming prisoner inside my own body, forced to watch as the Moroi used my physical form. I drove back toward the village, now the harbinger of the evil I had tried to expose. I was a Moroi, but with a human mind trapped inside, eternally tormented. I was the new legend, the new Wailing, and my first act was to return to my own family and friends, not to save them, but to bring the curse of the Moroi to them all. I was the new fear, and the wailing I heard was my own scream, forever silent to the world.